Hi, in the video today we're going to be looking at the motherboard, and we're going to be looking at the different types of connectors and slots associated with the motherboard. Okay then, well, looking at the motherboard we can see that there's an array of different types of sockets and slots there, and the reason for that is that everything that's connected to the computer is connected through the motherboard. Whether it's a USB pen drive, whether it's a digital camera, a scanner, or anything that we connect to the PC goes through the motherboard. If we look over to this side of the board, we can see that there's some white slots here. These are called the PCI slots. The PCI slots are commonly known as expansion slots, which allow us to connect extra devices such as network cards, sound cards, TV cards, etc. And they would all fit into these white PCI slots. Just moving along slightly here, we can see we've got a brown slot. And the brown slot usually denotes an AGP graphics card slot. Sometimes they're a slightly different colour, depending just on the manufacturer's design. They may come up with a yellow or an orange, but generally speaking they are brown. Set back slightly from the PCI slots, and this would house the much faster graphic cards. If we move across to this side of the motherboard, we can see there's a socket here which is what we would fit the processor into. Now the processor on this is a Pentium 4 type processor, and it's a socket 478, and that's basically the pin structure of the actual CPU. Now the CPU fits into here, and usually we don't see the CPU if we open up the PC case, because usually sat on top of that is a fan, and if we look at this black surround around here, this is used the housing for the fan. So you can see how big the fan is over this CPU, and the fan is there designed specifically to keep the CPU, which gets very hot, cool. If we move up, we can see we've got these blue slots here, and this is where the memory or RAM would be installed on the motherboard. On this particular board it's using what we call a DDR, double data rate memory, and that would be situated within these two slots. If we move towards the top here, we can see we've got three very similar looking connectors, one of which, this one, is slightly shorter in length, and this is the 34 pin, and these are 40 pin. The 34 pin is actually for the floppy disk cable, which connects directly to the floppy disk, and these connect to the 40 pin connectors fit to the hard drives and CD-ROMs within the system. Okay, if we just zoom in a little bit, there's another connector which sits directly under the floppy controller on this motherboard, and this is the ATX power supply connector, and this is where the power supply fits to the motherboard and provides power through the rest of the board. Okay, if we just spin the board round, we can see we've got some more connectors at the side of the motherboard now, and if you look here, we've got the green, what we call the PS2 connector. This is where the mouse and the keyboard would fit. The green one is color coded for the mouse, and it's sort of a violet color for the keyboard. If we move along, we've got an old-style communication port here, which we could use with the old serial mice. Some old modems will connect to this as well. Moving up slightly, we've got a printer port here, which is where we can connect the printer. And if we move along, we can see that we've got some USB connectors. Now the USB stands for Universal Serial Bus, and that is what most of the peripherals that we connect to the PCs use today. So for instance, if we've got a digital camera, or if we've got a printer or a scanner that we want to connect, usually they'll use this USB interface which connects to the computer. Just moving along a little bit further, we've got a couple more USBs, and directly above that we've actually got an integrated network card built onto this system. therefore there'd be no need to actually buy and install a PCI network card, because we've actually got one built into the motherboard that we can use. And similar with the last three connectors here, we've got the connections for the sound card, which is built onto this motherboard as well. The red one denotes the for the microphone, the green is for this speaker output, and we've got another auxiliary one here which we can use for another speaker output as well. Okay, that wraps up the brief description of the sockets and slots on the motherboard, and in future videos we'll be looking at those in a little bit more depth, and also how to connect the devices and hardware to those sockets.